Welcome back. When I asked Dr. Bill Edgar to read tonight, he said yes. Then he said, I take it your rule is I have to read my own material? I said yes. He said, well, I'm not doing that. We stood there. I looked up at his face, waiting to understand what he meant. He looked over the top of my head by about 2 feet. Then he told me, I'll read, but I'm not going to read my own stuff. Okay, I said. I'm going to read my son's work. He's more in the literary line. If Bill Edgar had been a student, I would have said, no, please, it's got to be your own stuff. But Bill Edgar is not a student. He is the spirit brother of Mark Wahlberg. I am afraid of Mark Wahlberg, even when he was in the Funky Bunch. So I said, you betcha, read whatever you like. It was a wise move, and I know you'll thank me for it. In talking to Dr. Bill Edgar before the event tonight, he told me that he's not reading his son's work, but he's reading a creative piece that he wrote for tonight. And I said, you betcha, whatever you like. Dr. Bill Edgar.
To read something my son John wrote. And then I called my youngest son Daniel, and I said, I've agreed to read something that I wrote because Dan Williams asked me, and I said yes before I thought. I said, what should I do? I haven't written anything of this sort in, well, you can imagine how many years. So he said, this is my son Daniel, my youngest. He said, why don't you write up that story you told us one night before bed about the window? So I want you to imagine yourselves ages 5, that would be Daniel, or 8, his older brother Adam, and it's bedtime and you're getting ready for bed. And your father, rather than reading you Father Bear Comes Home, or Winnie the Pooh, decides to just make up a story. And you listen to it. So this is about the west window. Our Jeep bounced over the rutted dirt road, passing field after Iowa field of dry corn stalks, some recently cut, others awaiting their fate. Mom and Pop sat in front talking about visiting her family in Massachusetts. Josh and I sat in the back, filled with curiosity and dread. We were going to stay with our mother's older brother for 2 weeks. He was Uncle Ben. The family joke was that Ben should have been a rice grower, but Uncle Ben was not a joking man. Laconic and brusque, he had married young, built his unusual house in the middle of nowhere, and then lost his wife in a tragedy never explained. Coming off a curve at a slight crest in the dusty road, we glimpsed reflected sunlight from the east. It came from a window in Uncle Ben's house, which jutted from the dry October ground like a lone cornstalk missed by the reaping machines, its weather-clappered walls innocent of paint. The 4 stories were unique on the plains and made the house look out of place. A rocking chair on the porch sat unmoving. As we arrived from the west, the sun began heading towards home, and the great window of leaded glass reflected red and blue and green into the sky. I glanced at my brother Josh, watching his bright eyes shining with apprehension as he stared at our destination. He was 11 and small for his age. I was 14 and big for mine. We both hoped Uncle Ben's house would be open for exploration. Who knew what surprising secrets our eccentric uncle might have included in the house he had built long ago for his young wife. Uncle Ben greeted us at the door. From that house, you could see anything coming from any direction long before it got there. All right, these your boys? I'll keep them busy for you. Josh and I carried our suitcases inside. We gave our parents the required hugs goodbye Pop whispered in my ear, "Take care of your brother." I promised. Keeping my brother out of trouble had been my job since he'd been a toddler. We were homeschooled, but Mom worked half days to supplement Dad's income as a youth pastor, so I was left in charge of Josh for long stretches each day. The house looked as though nothing had been done to it since it had been built. The floorboards creaked, smoke from the fireplace had darkened the walls, and the rug by the fireplace had holes in it. Uncle Ben told us to carry our suitcases to our room on the second floor. Random items took up half of each step, so we had to step carefully. Here, a pile of dusty books, there some clothes, tools on that step, an old radio on the next one. Our room had 2 beds. The floor was booby-trapped with splinters and loosened nails. Clutter was everywhere. "Here's where you'll sleep," Uncle Ben said. "And one thing more, never go to the top floor." He left us and went back downstairs. There wasn't much of interest in our room, so we decided to check out other rooms. The second room was like ours, but with only 1 bed. Uncle Ben slept there. The rug on the 3rd floor tripped Josh, and he bumped a painting on the wall. I reached to straighten it, and it grabbed my attention. Here was the first clean thing in the house, which could only mean that Uncle Ben dusted it regularly. Why? Looking at the painting closely, I saw a large room unlike anything else in the house. The walls were clean and bright, the floor undamaged, and no clutter. On the smooth hardwood floor sat a large bed, 2 side tables, and a huge chest of drawers. Half of one wall was taken up with a stained glass window, but the painting's perspective meant that we could not see the colored window itself. The artist, however, showed splotches of color on the floor the sun made shining through it. The 3rd floor was more interesting than the 2nd. The rooms were still cluttered and dirty, but from the windows you could see a long way. There were 4 rooms off a central landing, so you could look out windows to all points of the compass. In the southeast corner of the landing was a door with a heavy padlock on it. For boys raised in the mountains of Colorado, the views from the 4 rooms were novel. There was nothing to see, of course, just flat field after flat field to the north, to the east, to the south, and to the west. But you could see a long way. Far away in the east, there was the hint of some hills, signaling the presence of the mighty Mississippi River beyond them. But the padlocked door was the most interesting thing on the 3rd floor, because it was padlocked. Suddenly, Uncle Ben appeared. Absorbed in our exploring, we hadn't heard him coming. "The attic's off limits," he said. "Ain't safe. If I catch you trying to go up there, you'll sleep in the barn till your folks get back." He went back downstairs. For the next 4 days, Uncle Ben kept us busy with chores. Every now and then I would catch him leaning on a shovel or just standing there looking at us oddly. Perhaps our gruff old uncle was actually beginning to like us, as though maybe we were the sons he never had. On the 5th day, Uncle Ben announced at lunch that he was going into town on the tractor. He didn't own a car. "You 2 eat so much, we're running out of food," he said. Here was our chance. As soon as Uncle Ben was out of sight, I hurried upstairs, Josh right behind. I was supposed to keep Josh safe, but I was also the one who often got us into trouble. Rummaging through my uncle's room, I found a set of keys. Josh disapproved, but he only murmured his protest because he liked my adventures as much as I did. He just didn't always approve of my methods. We went immediately to the locked door and began trying one key after another. The 7th key turned and the lock popped open. Up we went. The sprawling room at the top was familiar. It was the room in the painting. Same bed, same bedside tables, same floor, and same leaded stained glass window taking up half the western wall. Actually, the room had 4 stained glass windows, each with a life-sized bird of prey. The north window showed a falcon diving, wings swept back, fastest creature on earth, beak ready to kill. In the bottom corner of the window was its prey, a pigeon. In the east, there was a soaring eagle in a royal blue sky, twice the wingspan of a falcon, eyes fixed on the ground far below. Its wings were tilted left, preparatory to circling down to snatch the lamb with its talons. The south wind showed an osprey hawk lazily floating on air currents over a river where a fish had just broken the surface. Each bird was beautiful, and we could not understand why Uncle Ben had not let us see them. The view out the windows was even better than on the third floor. Then we turned to get a good look at the large west window. This window was much larger than the other three. Its colors were gorgeous, but the bird it showed was unlike any we had ever seen. Larger than an eagle, sleeker than a falcon, and as beautiful as a hawk floating on air, it held our gaze while the sun dipped toward the horizon. In the middle of the window were children playing a game of tag in a meadow, and a date and location. Made in Salem, Massachusetts, 1693. Uncle Ben must have brought the window with him from Massachusetts when he moved west with his new bride, and he'd built this room to display it. Each window had a latch so you could open it and let evening breezes in. Why not open it? Then we could feel the wind and also watch for Uncle Ben returning better than we could through the stained glass. Josh said, "Don't open it. What if Uncle Ben sees it opened?" I lifted the latch anyway, and the window swung open easily, making what sounded like a bird call. We felt a momentary chill, but then we saw a small dust cloud on the west road. Uncle Ben was coming, and we better get downstairs fast. Reaching to close the window before Uncle Ben saw it open, we saw something else. A small dot silhouetted against the setting sun. Wanting to see what it was, we waited to close the window. The dot grew, and we saw it was a bird, a large bird, flying swiftly towards us. The thought occurred to my brother and me simultaneously. Maybe we should close the window for a second reason besides Uncle Ben's coming. The tractor sounded closer, and we reached to pull the window shut. It wouldn't budge. We tried harder. It would not come. Uncle Ben would soon see the open window if he hadn't seen it already, and we began to panic. If we could not get the window shut and get downstairs, replacing the padlock and putting the keys back before he returned, we would be in big trouble. Just then a shadow in the sky diverted our attention from Uncle Ben on his tractor. It was the bird, and oh my, was it big. It was the bird in the window. With the window and watched the bird loom larger. Agonizing fear gripped us, and we began pulling on the window with all our strength. It still would not move. The bird grew immense and hid the disappearing rim of the sun. The tractor was loud, its engine straining. We fought with the window, we pulled, we tried to rock it back and forth so that whatever held it open would let go, it would not move. Then the bird's huge wings hid the sky completely until it folded them for a dive, and we knew that the beautiful creature meant to fly in the window. Swooping in, it landed on the floor behind us, between us and the stairs. Paralyzed, we stood immobile as though our feet were nailed to the floor. The bird cocked its head towards us, intelligent eyes considering. The tractor stopped suddenly. Uncle Ben was home. From Josh to me, and back to Josh again, the bird's head moved. Then, in a sudden move, it lifted its left leg and grabbed Josh around the waist with its talons, slashing him as it grabbed. Blood spurted onto the floor. Feet were running madly up the stairs. The bird stepped toward the window, spread its glorious wings, gave a cry, and flew out the window with Josh dangling from one foot, screaming. Uncle Ben, gasping, stepped into the room. He gave a despairing cry of rage and flew to the window, where he saw the huge bird silhouetted against the darkening sky, flying west with my brother. It was a beautiful bird. It was a beautiful window, both otherworldly and diddly, a wicked echo of Salem, or perhaps Sodom. Even after the bird took his own wife, Uncle Ben had been unable to part with the window. But now, filled with grief and hatred, he hit it so hard with his fist that it began to break. But he could only hit it 3 times. I have to tell you the sequel to that story. My 2 boys never again permitted me to make up a story. I could only read to them from books.
Uncle Edgar. Well, thank you everyone for undergoing metamorphosis with me. My friends, take care of one another. Write something, read something, call your mothers, and come back in November for Dr. Shirley Kilpatrick and Dr. Eric Miller. Good night.